Okay, I hope that's a wrap. And while we just finish up, I'll just give you a little bit more info on what we do. So when you join Toastmasters, there is something called Toastmasters Pathways. And basically, as I mentioned before, Toastmasters has been going for coming up to 100 years. So as you can imagine, anything to do with public speaking has been covered by Toastmasters. So you'll be going through a systematic process where you'll be covering a series of speeches, and with each speech you'll be covering an aspect of public speaking. For example, one day you might be covering how to structure a speech well. The next day you might be focusing on voice variation. The following day, body language. Another time, using visual aids for your presentations. And another occasion, storytelling. So when you do join Toastmasters, there's a whole series of pathways. I'll just name a few. Dynamic leadership, effective coaching, engaging humor, innovative planning, leadership development, persuasive influence, and presentation mastery. So these are all systematic, step-by-step programs to help you go from good to better to excellent. So we are going to go into a bit of an educational and interactive session. So I know you enjoyed the good looks and the nice accent of Julian, but now you're going to get someone who's even better looking. So
please continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause to Paul Donald Nkana.
Alright folks, my wonderful people of Accenture, and of course dear fellow Toastmasters, my name is Paul Nkana Nkana, and before we get started, let me ask a quick question. How many of you know my story? Please raise your hands. I'll be one of those people. Anybody else? 1, 2? Right, that was more famous than that. Well, that's okay, because I'm going to give you a bit of a context as to who I am and why I'm doing this particular workshop. Because today's workshop will be all about the power of storytelling in the context of impromptu speaking. So my story started back in secondary school. That's when somebody told me about this young little boy who had a dream of becoming a professional basketball player. Now, he attended the same school as I did in Russia, and then, from there folks, he went on to becoming the national star. When I heard that story, my eyes got lit. And I said to myself, if I can fly like Michael Jordan, if I can pass the ball like Magic Johnson, maybe one day I can become the professional basketball player too. I picked up the ball at the age of 11, and by the age of 18, I made my first semi-professional debut. Now, on to the next story. My next story came from my dad, who once told me how he was able to save a patient's life by conducting a very, very difficult surgery on them. Now, that was the first time when my eyes got open on the world of healthcare. And of course, after that, I went to fulfill the African prophecy of becoming a medical personnel. If any of you African here in the building, you know, yes, you know, you're either an engineer, a lawyer, a medical doctor, right? Anyways, jokes aside. So, I decided to embark on my journey of becoming a pharmacist. And I graduated from the University of Manchester Pharmacy School. Now, from then on, folks, the next stop was I bumped into a stranger. Well, at that time, he was a stranger. But now, he's a dear friend of mine and my business partner. Well, back then, folks, I thought, well, who's that person, first of all? But then, with time, folks, that person pushed me to think beyond just pharmacy. And he connected me to Toastmasters. And now I've been part of Toastmasters for just over 2.5 years. And hence why I'm standing in front of you here, delivering this workshop. Now, the point I'm trying to make here with this little story is that I am the result of a series of stories that led me to this place tonight. So my question to all of you is this. What is your story? This is a rhetorical question. As a matter of fact, what stories are you telling yourself? What are some of the stories that you're telling to the rest of the world? Because you all have something to tell. You all come from different backgrounds. You all come from different countries, right? We have Jasmine, for example, right? She did chemistry, she ended up being in Accenture, a consulting company, right? We have Mafia, who is, well, you've got like 20, 30 citizenship from many different countries. I'm sure the Home Office is on her case already. Anyways, what I'm trying to say, folks, is that we all got something to say. So use those stories, not only impact people around you, at your workplace, but also people across the world. So if there's one thing that I wanted to take away from today's workshop, is I'm going to dive into some very, very nitty-gritty stuff that I've done as being part of Toastmasters for the past 2.5 years, will be this. Stories create buying. Presentations, on the other side, create blockages. That's a very, very important piece of information. Stories create buying. Presentations, on the other side, create blockages. So let's start with my workshop. We all know, what does it take? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask you a question. What does it take to create a story? Anyone knows? I'm going to try and keep it as interactive as possible, by the way. Anyone knows what does it take to create a good story, a compelling story? What's some of the components that we need? Matt?
Characters.
Characters, okay. Steve?
Hero.
Hero, okay. Anybody else?
Emotion.
Emotion. Okay. You're all wrong. Sam?
A message.
Sorry?
A message.
A message. Oh, pretty close. Anyone else? Jane?
Make it relatable.
Relatable. Steve? Okay, I like that.
Yes, it's like something to root for or something.
Something to root for. Okay. You're close. You're close. But anyways, it's not the same answer as I have. Because my answer is this. You need 3 simple things. You need an introduction, you need the main part, and you need the conclusion. Now, let's start with an introduction first. I'm going to try and make it as relatable as I can to all of you folks. Let's start with introduction first. Let me ask you a quick question. You don't have to answer, but please do. Who had a date last week? Anybody? No, please, please, I need that. Please, 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 come on. You got one, and who else, who else? One. Okay. The only reason I'm asking is because I need the most up-to-date information when it comes to some of you here for your input. Let's come to Jasmine first. Is it just her? Anybody else, please? No? Okay, that's fine. Right, so I'm going to ask you a quick question. When you go on a date for the first time, right? So, what are you looking for? By the way, appropriate answers only.
I'm looking for.
Okay, let me ask you a rephrase the question. What's the purpose of first time dating?
To see the person in person.
Okay.
Have a conversation with them. Get to understand what type of person they are, what their morals are, what their values are.
Okay.
And basically understand if you can connect with them.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so what happens when you don't, when, let's say, first time dating doesn't go too far? So what do you tend to say to your family when you come back home?
Oh, shit.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your input, by the way. Round of applause. So she said something very important, folks. Something that I was looking for, which is the word connect. Now, if you all remember your first time dating experiences, right? We don't come to a date with a memory stick and a PowerPoint presentation, right?
That would be useful.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody else does, but that's not been my experience. You don't come with an Excel spreadsheet, right? Telling them about all your achievements that you've done over the past 5 years, right? We don't, unless anybody, I don't know, anybody here? We're all the same, right? Okay. Sorry? You Andrew, no? Right. What we are really doing there is ideally, of course, ideally, you want to book a nice table in a restaurant, right? Dim lights and slow jams in the background. And what we're doing is we are telling stories. We are sat there and we are telling stories to one another across the table. And we're trying to connect with a person across the table. And how do we connect? by sharing personal stories. Is that true, Jasmine?
Yeah.
Yeah? So we're telling them stories about ourselves, and they're telling us stories about themselves. And that's how we identify if there is a connection. Now, the reason why, by the way, this is not a dating workshop, okay? The reason why I just brought this up is because there's a purpose in there. Connection. And that's what we want you to think about when we talk introduction. Introduction is all about injecting your personal experience, because that's how you connect with your audience. That's the purpose of your introduction, is to connect with them. And then how well you connect with them will all come down to use of different language techniques. Now, this is going to be your homework, and to be honest, you probably know some of them anyways. Things like metaphors that you can use to enhance the personal experience you're sharing with your audience. Things like irony, things like sarcasm. Very, very important language techniques that we can all use. Things like repetitions at the beginning. You can use those. Things like asking somebody a question right from the start, and then trying to follow up with your personal story. That's what introduction is all about. Now, of course, we're trying to make it as relatable as we can to your industry, right? So you on day-to-day, like I spoke with Steve before, he told me that he works with clients from all around the world. Is that correct, Steve? Right. So perhaps when you connect with your clients, you either sell a product or a service, or what that is. But you have to remember that you're all in the consulting business, which is a people's business. On the other side, regardless whether you sell a product or whether you sell a service, there's a human being on the other side. So it's important to connect with them using your story. Now, what does that might look like? Well, let's say if you are telling a story to your client and they follow up with a question. That's what normally tends to happen, right? When you guys have a boardroom of directors or whoever that is, you tell them a story, you don't present, you tell them a story, remember that, you tell them a story, and then they'll probably follow up with some questions. Like, your name is Santosh?
Yeah.
Like Santosh, he just pitched us his AI product in healthcare. The next thing, logical thing, is to follow up with questions. Now, when that happens, you might want to use, first of all, a language technique to bring yourself and themselves on the same level. So you might say, let's say there's a problem to solve. You might say things like, well, I understand where you are coming from. It's like trying to headbutt a wall for 10 minutes straight without realizing that you have a key in your pocket. There's a door right next to you. And listen, I've worked with so many clients from all around the world, X, Y, Z. That's how you use your story and language technique together to start your introduction. Are we all clear on that point? I'm going to write that down as well so you can all remember. So, let's start with introduction here. Intro. I'm just going to write that down. Connect by story plus language. Excuse my writing. And my spelling, nice one. So next bit. Next comes main body. For the main body, I'm going to get some folks on stage here. It'll be like a mini impromptu session, similar to what Julian did, but you're going to have 1 minute instead of 2 minutes. Let me give you some clear instructions here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign you a particular technique. We'll be talking about 4 main techniques that I've come across in my Toastmasters journey. So I'm going to get 4 people on stage here. I'm going to assign you a particular technique, and your job will be to answer a question within 1 minute. So we'll have more opportunities to come on stage here. And essentially, follow my instructions answering my question. Are we all clear on that? Just some heads up, folks. So if I pick you, and you decide to look away, I just want to, I still see you. So, let's not make it awkward for each other, please. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So I need four people, 4 volunteers. Come on, I can see so many hands here. Who hasn't participated yet? Okay, we got 1 volunteer. Someone said Kingsley, that's what I heard. I don't know. That was right. Somebody said Kingsley. Oh, he said number 2. We got 2 already. Then somebody said Josh. I don't know. That's what I heard. Did somebody say Josh?
Okay.
Okay, Josh. And then who wants to be the 4th one? The lucky person. Okay, let's pick somebody from that table. Yes, so, okay, 3 ladies, okay. So, anybody who wants to take part? You go. Anita, okay, please, come on, come on. Right. Okay. So we have here, so we have Josh.
This is my full name.
My father. Okay. Anita and Kingsley. Okay, folks, these are our 4 victims. Sorry, volunteers. These are our 4 volunteers. That's what I meant to say, 4 volunteers. And let me just repeat once again. I'm going to give you a clear instruction at the beginning. You have 1 minute to answer the question. So, when the time starts, step forward and answer to your colleagues. Okay, so your technique will be, I'm going to write it down here. So Josh will be, Josh, you are past, present, and future. I'll explain. You are that guy. Yes. Okay, great. So, my instructions are, you ready?
Yeah.
Give him a round of applause, by the way. So heads up here, this is not a technical test. This is not a technical test, right? So I'm not looking for the right answer here. What I'm looking